Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to start another webinar. This is our fourth webinar already in this project, and the project is supported by the European Commission, and it is the European Network of Youth Cancer Survivors. It does have a strange acronym, and you might be familiar with it by now. It is called EU-CAYAS-NET. But we do prefer to use the long name and are very, very proud of this growing network of different stakeholders all banding together to make a difference for young people living with and beyond cancer. So welcome to this webinar on education and career support. We have amazing lineup. We have an amazing lineup of speakers for you today. We will be looking at how accessible education is during cancer therapy and what might be some examples of school re-entry and what are some legal bases for patient advocacy in this area. And actually, while I'm saying this, I will ask for the first poll to be pulled up so that you can start answering this, because I already see we have nearly 50 people on the webinar. And as you are helping us with these polls, and we will understand what your thoughts are on education, access to education, continued education, and to the right kind of careers after finishing cancer therapy, we will be also revealing some of our studies and some of our focus group results within this project. So there will be some concrete examples of responses that we gathered from two focus groups on career support and also touching on education. And there will be some other country-specific educational services mentioned as well. So on today's webinar, we will be traveling to Austria, to Spain, and to Netherlands. And I see that some results are already coming in. So how important is education and career support? All right. I see 12 people cast their votes today. So for some of you, it might not be the most important. And of course, this poll is open for everyone, for young people affected by cancer, but also we might have carers and family members on this webinar as well as healthcare providers. Okay. 18 people now cast their votes. Thank you so much for that. So there's like a mixed opinion, but more than half of those of you who have voted think that it is of maximum importance. Now, I wonder if we could go to the next poll, because here we can pick your brains a little bit on what you consider to be the most important elements in educational or career support programs. And the reason we are asking this is because we will be showcasing 3 concrete examples today. And we would like to know everyone's feeling on how education and re-entry to education or re-entry to successful careers should be tackled on a European level, and actually whether it's an EU competence, a member state competence. Is this burden supposed to be on NGOs, patient organizations, patient advocacy groups, or the patients themselves? So guidance in dealing with impairments, advice on suitable training and career paths, legal advice, communication with school or employer. And I think here we're talking about some services that actually offer some sort of brokerage, that somebody would actually be responsible in that unit, in that hospital, to help with their communication and be in touch with education institutions or employers, maybe with education on what is it like for young people living with and beyond cancer. All right, so those haven't had no votes. Communication with school employer, you don't think it's very important. Online support and training also, you don't think it's very important. However, advice and guidance are very important. And I'm going to correct myself, more than half of the people voting, so that all points are important. Okay, well, thank you so much. This is really useful, actually. And maybe just to mention that according to the registrations, more than 60% of participants today were expected to be young people living with and beyond cancer. So I think that's an important thing to know. And we are also expecting some healthcare providers and other people who didn't disclose who they are. But if you feel like writing and introducing yourself, then please do that in the chat. So I see that our chat is still empty. If you feel like introducing yourself, you're really welcome to do that. And please, I would like to bring your attention to the Q&A. There's a Q&A button in the bottom of your screen. So if you press that, that's where you can ask questions. We will not have a panel with all our speakers today, and we will not be able to engage in a live conversation like that, but we will be able to take your questions. And while this gets fixed, I'm going to introduce our first speaker today. So, setting the scene for what it means to have opportunities and equal opportunities and education and being set up for success, for ideal careers so that you can shine. We have Dr. Thomas Blatchko talking to us today. He is a clinical psychologist with a specialization on clinical neuropsychology, child, youth, and family psychology. And he is the deputy team coordinator of the psychosocial team in the University Clinic for Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine in Vienna. Welcome, Thomas. We look forward to what you have to share with us and for you to set the scene.
Well, thank you, Katie, for the introduction, for the nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm glad to be able to speak to you about this very important topic. I think I would have crossed the 10 in the first poll, and I hopefully can give you at least a little bit of information you hope for, as mentioned in the second poll, especially some guidance in dealing with specific impairments. I would like to talk today about school reintegration support for adults, for adolescents and young adults living with and beyond cancer. Please move on to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So I would like to give you a brief overview of what I'm going to talk today. I think there is a very important concept we need to talk about, and this is participation. Participation is something that came up a few decades ago, which is actually a very old concept, but it came into the mind of people about 20 years ago when we were starting a new classification system of functions and also activities of people in everyday life. But there are also some challenges, and especially in youth cancer survivors, there are certain challenges, late effects that need to be taken into account as barriers for participation. I will then move on to school reentry support, and we'll talk about a concept called disadvantage compensation, and especially the legal basis. And I mainly focused actually on the top legal basis and not so much on the Austrian system, even though I will go a little bit into detail there. And I will then move on to another example we currently focus on in research in Austria, and also try to establish in our healthcare system as an opportunity for social interaction. This is a telepresence system aiming to keep the sense of belonging as stable as possible. And then finally, I have a take-home message for you. So please move on to the next slide. Thank you. And once again. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the possibilities to participate in everyday life depend on the number of variables. So we have protective factors that facilitate participation in everyday life, but we also have late effects that are often certain barriers. And participation is defined as involvement in a life situation. You have here the acronym ICF. This is the International Classification of Functioning. This is a classification system by the WHO. It is approximately 20 years old, and this is the model behind it. So we do not only talk about the health condition, but we mainly focus on communication, mobility, self-care, and other aspects that are associated with a specific health condition. So you may have cancer as the health condition, but you may have memory, attention, and other body functions that are affected by the health condition. And these in the next step affect participation in everyday life. So for example, if you can't really memorize new information, you cannot really take part in a theater production of the school or something like that. Yeah. And we also have some environmental factors like facilitators and barriers in the environment that really affect participation. And this is where we're heading to, finding facilitators in the environment that may help to facilitate participation. So next one, please. Yeah. So regarding the long-term effects, late effects in a specific cancer condition, this person says, well, I have a number of participation restrictions because of my late effects. And these may be difficulties conversating in a noisy environment because of some hearing problems. These may be difficulties in memorizing passwords because of memory problems, managing a whole day because of the fatigue symptoms, doing sports, either because of motor or because of weight problems. Then next one, neat handwriting because of fine motor issues. Watching and listening simultaneously, something you actually are doing right at the moment. You're watching to my slides and listening to my, well, quick speaking, because I only have 10 minutes for this very important topic, yeah? This may be related to dividing your attention. And handling stress, maybe because you have a specific hormonal dysfunction. So there are still a number of other late effects, of course. All of these may cause participation restrictions. We have a publication already a few years ago, a standard of care in pediatric blood and cancer, and this standard of care is called school reentry support. Well, I just want to highlight a few issues on that. So we have, for example, school absence or also absence from work, from job situations. It also may be applicable to the to not only to school but other aspects of work life, for example. And this school absence may, on the one hand side, lead to reduced social participation. I will focus on that later. But also to a reduced academic participation, which may lead to, as I mentioned, cognitive concerns, emotional burdens, things like that. And in the standard of care, there are specific statements given. So next, please. Yeah, so the most important aspect of this standard of care is that in collaboration with parents, school-aged youth diagnosed with cancer should receive school reentry support that focuses on providing information to school personnel about the patient's diagnosis, treatment, and most importantly, implications for the school environment and recommendations to support the child's school experience. So that's the important aspect. So this is the most important aspect, recommendations to support the school experience. Then there is the as I mentioned, the disadvantage compensation and its legal basis. So a disadvantage compensation is a tool that serves fair performance evaluation, for example, at school, but also in the job situation. So to give you an example, if I have a poor vision, I wouldn't be able to give this presentation. So I have to wear my glasses, and this is my disadvantage compensation. And we need similar concepts at school or also in job situation. But we have to say that a disadvantage compensation is a disadvantage compensation and not an advantage. So this is important to mention, especially to teachers or other people in the educational system. And the legal basis is actually the Article 24 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which says, the states parties recognize the right of persons with disabilities to education, and the states shall ensure on an inclusive education system at all levels, and lifelong learning directed to the full development of human potential and sense of dignity and self-worth, and the development by persons with disabilities of their personality, talents, and creativity, as well as their mental and physical abilities to their fullest potential, and also the ability to participate effectively in a free society. So again, we have this concept of participation. To give you an example of some example of what disadvantage compensation is about. So we have the concept of room or space. For example, this would be quiet rooms for exams, or a specific seat according to the disability, either at the front or near the door. Orientation guides, extra or individual space at the desk, a specific lighting in the room, or the lighting has to be adapted. Another aspect would be time. So I already mentioned extra time for exams or individual time slots, a reduced amount of tasks in a given time frame, the predictability of tests, fixed time range for homework, or additional time until the deadline. Third, the structure. So there are individual work plans or an individual order of tasks, additional oral instructions in written tests and vice versa, being allowed to focus on one task after the other, being allowed to work in groups individually as needed. And there may be some people or specific evaluations by teachers as facilitators, like support of teachers, the health care professionals that directly come to the school, or a greater accuracy tolerance, for example, in drawing. Or similar mistakes only count as one if they fall in the same category in writing. So just a few examples, and we can add many, many more. And I think the most important aspect is that these disadvantage compensations have to be adapted according to the individual functioning health status and the individual participation needs. To move on to the second example, so again, school absence may lead to a reduced social participation in this context. We also have a standard of care here called opportunities for social interaction. And there, again, we have specific results like a social isolation or a feeling of reduced sense of belonging, which many patients report. The standard here says that children and adolescents with cancer should be provided opportunities for social interactions, including their personal preferences for social interaction. Again, these concepts may be adapted also to the work life, but probably we would need some other aspects here. We have in Europe currently a number of specific telepresence systems like BedNet, or also the Avatar and other systems that are used. In Austria, we recently focused mainly on the Avatar. This is this little guy here, and we try to understand how this telepresence system actually works. And what the possibilities are. We have at the moment more than 120 children and adolescents in Austria already having received an avatar. And it was very important for us to establish a system where the healthcare professionals, but also the school system, the educational system, closely work together to find the best solution for our patients. You see here that before the avatar goes to school, instead of the patient who cannot go him or herself, the avatar is personalized. And we do not only use the avatar at school, but also in spare time. So we had children visiting the soccer stadium or the Vienna State Opera. And the most important information on this slide is that there is already scientific evidence that the sense of belonging remains stable for at least 6 months when such a telepresence system is used. So why only 6 months? Because we have a longitudinal study and we were not able to do the or we don't have enough data for the long-term follow-up. So we only have 6 months at the moment evaluated. So the take-home message is, wouldn't it be much easier to achieve true participation if the possibility of disadvantage compensation existed for all people in educational institutions? And I know also at universities there are already established systems who have a health restriction which leads to barriers in the individual participation possibilities, provided that consideration of the disadvantages specifics gives reason to expect that the respective educational goal can be achieved, and the form of the disadvantage compensation is adapted to the individual circumstances. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry for the technical issues, but hopefully you have some new information that may be of help. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. No, it's been absolutely wonderful, and you were super flexible and solved all the technical issues very, very quickly. Maybe if we could just go back one slide, please, very quickly, because we can just back. Yes, thank you. If anyone has any questions, this is still your moment to write something in the Q&A. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to ask you, Thomas, that if you have anything published already about your study, because I think a lot of us would be very, very interested. We are also using similar technologies, and I know about one specific case in Romania, but I actually heard of many other patient organizations in other European countries as well. But it's nice to get some evidence for our patient advocacy. Do you have anything published?
So we have some theoretical background already published. We also have a case study published. I will love to share that with you afterwards. The specific study that is proof for the 6-month
yeah, that's
period.
one. Yeah,
this one is actually for already 5 months under review. I'm very sorry to say that, and that's really something that is a little bit well, not so funny, but as soon as it's published, I will love to share it.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're really looking forward to that, because also maybe your study design will inspire other countries to do similar studies, 1, and 2, if you have results that can be used in other cases, that is really good for patient advocacy. And maybe one more thing, and while I'm saying this, I'm still keeping an eye on the Q&A. So if anyone from the audience has any questions, pop your question right there. But my question then, or maybe like a comment to you, Thomas, that for educational institutions who actually might be ready to implement such disadvantage compensation systems and models, because we have seen it. And sometimes it's random, sometimes you don't even know, but they are very, very ready to implement such measures. One of the obstacles that many young people living with cancer face is actually getting that disability certification. And we've heard that from a lot of young people that it varies across Europe. In some countries, you need to be disabled to a certain degree to get such a certification. In some other countries, so, and And also because cognitive function impairment, maybe 5-10 years after cancer therapy, is still something that we don't have enough evidence or data on, and it's not so easily accepted. I think a lot of people actually struggle with having access to such systems, even if they would be existing.
Yeah, that's exactly what my experience is. I mentioned especially the UN Convention because this is something global. Yeah, and actually, if we follow such a convention, then it shouldn't be overruled by by country-specific legal aspects. But I know there are different laws in the different countries, and in Germany, for example, you need a written report by a doctor or by a neuropsychologist or psychologist to get this disadvantage compensation. In Austria, it's in Switzerland, it's about the same. I don't really know about the other countries. And in Austria, it's actually the term disadvantage compensation, or the German equivalent, is not at all written in the school laws. But actually, that's a good point, because we have to say, okay, it's the right for people with disabilities to receive education in order to fully participate is written in the UN Convention, and this has to be implemented by each and every person, and especially by the teachers themselves, but also by the employers. Yeah, so we actually don't need a specific law regulation because it's already written there. And as long as the country follows these conventions, we don't really need a specific law. But for administrative reasons, there are sometimes extra forms to fill in and letters to write and things like that.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big barriers actually getting there. So convincing people that the disability needs to be acknowledged and the disadvantage needs to be compensated for, and referring to the UN rights and conventions, I think that's sort of maybe the easier part, but getting the disabilities acknowledged, especially the invisible ones, might be the more difficult part for our patient advocates. And there's also a very good comment from Natalie that sometimes long-term side effects can appear a decade later or several decades later. And well, the question was whether this disability advantage might disappear after a certain number of years. No. So if there is an expiration date, but so the answer is no, but I think we still need to understand how we can actually apply and get those disabilities acknowledged.
Well, my recommendation is, so if it's not acknowledged by itself or by following the UN Convention, then please try to contact your healthcare providers and try to contact also psychologists, neuropsychologists, if it's in the cognitive domain, and try to make them write into the report that there is a relationship between the basic illness and the long-term sequelae. Yeah? So this correlation has to be written into the report. This is one very important aspect. And then what follows out of these late effects? Yeah, and the description of the symptoms, but also a description of the actions that need to be taken.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And actually, it's nice it takes us to the EU-CAYAS-NET project, where some of these things, late effects and long-term follow-up, and acknowledging all of these long effects of cancer therapy are discussed. And because we're talking about the EU-CAYAS-NET project, I would like to actually give over the word to Kerstin Krottendorfer and Jike Wams, who are very active in EU-CAYAS-NET and are able to give us account of 2 specific focus group meetings that have taken place in the Netherlands, in the Princess Maxima Center, where Jike Wams is a PhD student, and you will have known her from a lot of previous work that she has done, especially on late effects, long-term follow-up, transition from pediatric to adult oncology, etc., within this project. And Kirsten Krottendorfer, who is also from Vienna, as our previous speaker, and she's also participating in the EU-CAYAS-NET project, and she's working as a social worker at the Neuro-Oncology Center, or a clinic of the University Clinic of Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine in Austria. We are looking forward to the results of these 2 focus groups.
Yes, thank you so much, Katie, for introducing us, and a small looking forward to the project outcomes. Well, I will discuss briefly, starting with the project setup of the focus groups, and then Kirsten and I will share some information about the outcomes of these focus groups. So I don't think yeah, there's the next slide. So for those of you watching who are not that familiar with the EU-CAYAS-NET project, this topic is a part of the first main theme of the project, which is quality of life. And there are several sub-themes, such as mental health and psychosocial care. We had a webinar on this a couple of weeks ago. And then we have today the webinar on education and career support, and the focus groups to identify gaps in care regarding this are one part of this. And then soon there will also be a webinar about transition and late effects and long-term follow-up care. So, but today we are focusing on the focus groups to identify gaps in care. Please, the next slide. Thank you. Well, the aim of the focus groups was to identify gaps in care from the survivor's point of view. So we wanted to know what are gaps in care regarding education and career support, and what are the needs of survivors in terms of educational and career support programs. So that's why we hosted 2 focus groups. And the first was held in Vienna a couple of months ago. And there were 7 participants who shared their experiences on taking part of education or career support programs somewhere in Austria. And then only yesterday we had our second focus group in the Netherlands with 4 participants who also shared their experiences of how they were taking part in education or career support programs in the Netherlands. So we aimed to recruit participants who were at least 2 years after their cancer diagnosis and had an age of below 39 years at the time of the oncologic diagnosis. And then the participant needed to be at least 18 years during the focus group and having had experience with education or career support in the past or currently is participating in such a program. And then there were also some exclusion criteria, and these were lack of German or Dutch language skills and the lack of cognitive ability to follow the focus group discussions. So these were all criteria that the participants had to apply to. And then we designed this structure for the focus group, and we tried to copy paste them to the second focus group as well, so that our setup was mainly overlapping. So we started with an introduction with some information about the EU-CAYAS-NET project, and then some information about the aim of the focus group. We had an introduction of the participants by using some word clouds, and then we continued with the main part of the focus group, which was exchanging experiences. And that was guided by some guiding questions. And we started with the question, what is your experience with education or career support? So that the other participants and ourselves got to know which programs and which organizations were talked about by the participants. And then we wanted to know what was helpful and what was particularly hindering during these programs. So then a lot of experiences were shared, and this contributed about very positive and some more negative experiences. Sorry, can you go back for a second? Thank you. Next question was, what are gaps in care that you would identify? And what are your wishes for education and career support? So we really wanted to have clarified what was desired. And then the last question was, which persons, actor, institutions, or whatsoever could you mention to provide additional support? So what was helping additionally to what you did not receive? And then we continued with some summary and closing. Yes, perfect. So now I hand over the floor to Kerstin, who will inform you about some insights of the first focus group that was held in Vienna.
Thank you very much, Ike, for the overview about the concept. Now I will continue with the first results. It's not finished, the whole analysis now. For the description of the participant, it's important to say for Vienna that all 7 participants had a brain tumor. You see it on the next slide. 6 of them had a high-grade glioma and 1 of them a granulopharyngioma. And all of them got a neurosurgical operation and a chemotherapy, and 4 of them a radiation. And the age at the diagnosis was 9.2 years, so they were between 1 and 70 years old, so very young patients at diagnosis. And the average age at the time of the focus group was 30.4 years, and the participants were between 20 and 40 years old at the time of the focus group. On the next slide, you can find the information given by the participants about the physical late effects. I highlighted the mostly mentioned late effects. So 6 of them have some hormonal failures, 4 of them some visual and neurological difficulties. On the next slide, you also can see the psychosocial late effects of the participants. Again, I highlighted those results in which at least 4 people have a problem or partially have a problem. And all 7 of them say that they're having difficulties to find a job or even to keep the job. So that's probably why they signed up to participate in this focus group to this topic. And closely linked to this are the socioeconomic problems indicated and also the social isolation. So let's start with the first results of the focus group, the helpful aspects in educational and career support programs from the survivors' point of view. So the participants mentioned in several places in the focus group the importance of individuality. So on the one side, they offer individual programs for educational and career support for people with oncological diseases. The programs which are adapted to their needs and requirements of the survivors. On the other hand, on the other side, the individual situation of the survivors with the biopsychosocial focus is very important and was mentioned. So it's meant to include not only the physical health condition, also the neuropsychological function. We'll read here from Thomas Plečko, and also the social aspects to address the strengths and weakness from the survival, all these 3 areas. Another aspect which was often mentioned and fits to the individuality is the time. For example, the time of counseling appointment. For the focus group participants, it was important to have enough time with their counselor or trainer in the program so that a suitable support can be found. Depending on the time spent in the counseling appointment itself, they addressed also the duration of the career support programs, which should be individually adjusted. So often they have a set time in which the program must be completed, and that's not always really helpful. The third aspect is the knowledge, that the counselor or the trainer in the career support program have a knowledge about oncological disease and the late effects, and therefore about the needs of the youth cancer survivors. One participant spoke in the focus group about a positive experience in a special program for survivors, the European commuter driving license. At this point, it's important to mention that the trainer at this program is used to oncological patients and know very well about late effects. Anyhow, since the treatment, the participants have some memory problems. He and also his trainer know about his issue. And so the learned content was not repeated only once, they repeated it several times. So they adapted the program to his individual need. And finally, he was able to pass the exam positively. And in this example, it includes a lot of aspects, the individuality, the time, and also the knowledge from the trainer about the oncological disease. Another important topic is the communication and providing information about the disease and the late effects. So for the participant, it's important to receive support to communicate with the trainer from the program, with the boss, and also the colleagues about their illness and the burdens in everyday working life. Experiences from the participants show that only when the environment is informed, they can respond and take it into consideration. And closely related to this is also the understanding and the listening to the participants. For example, why I have to write everything down in my notebook because of my memory problems, or why I need more breaks because of my fatigue. So please listen to the survivors. They know very well about their needs in their career. Another aspect was the social law support, for example, to have an official degree of disability, because it can increase the access to special career programs, or especially in Austria, it can protect also later when you find a workplace, the workplace. In several sequences of conversations, the participants spoke about the attitude also and the properties of the counselor and the trainer in the career support programs. Due to various negative experiences, the following aspects were very important for them. For example, to respect them, to acceptance, and the empathy. A topic, the last one, which I want to mention, are the environmental conditions. We've already heard it also in the talk from Thomas Pletschko. So important is for the career support program and also for the job later is the accessibility, the furnishing and the design of the office space. So one example was from a patient with hearing problems, and she used a hearing aid, and for her it was not possible to work in an open plan office. So therefore a solution had to found together with her, with the counselor, the trainer, and also the company, that she can really start there to work. On the next slide, I come over briefly to the aspects which are not helpful in career support programs. I start with the lack of understanding about the disease and the late effects from the counselor, the trainer, and also from the family and the social environment. One participant talked about her experiences with the Austrian Public Service for Employment, and she knows from herself that she can't work more than 25 hours, but the counselor from the Austrian Public Service Employment still send her full-time applications all the time. Participants said also that they are confronted with under and overestimation, which leads to frustration by themselves, but also frustration on the side from the trainer or later the workplace. And this point I would like to refer once again that it's important to take into account the physical, the neuropsychological, and also the social aspect. Another aspect was the lack of transparency in the applications process, so no feedback to the rejection of the applications, or also if when the trainer or the counselor are immediately advised to take a disability pension, so that's not helpful for them. Another aspect was the dealing with people which have an oncological illness, so examples were given that the participants from the career support programs or colleagues don't know how to react toward a person who is ill. So is it allowed to talk to the person about the illness? Uncertainty often leads to unfounded fears and barriers. And the last aspect, which was not helpful, is the financial pressure, which of course is independent of the career support program, but it does play a role for the participants. For example, when they have to reduce their working hours because of illness-related problems. Now I would like go shortly to some results, and I want to start with the need for the targeted career support programs for the childhood cancer and youth cancer survivors. So the programs should offer especially training for the counselors, for the trainers, to get information about the late effects and the needs of them. The survivors must be supported in how they can deal with the illness at the job market, also with their jobs, with the colleagues and the bosses. But also the support for the companies could play an important role. At the career support program, it can be very helpful to have a collaboration between different professions, for example, the medicine, the neuropsychology, and social work. So now, hand over to Yike again.
Thank you, Kerstin, and thank you for the wonderful explanation of the results from the Vienna focus group. Well, I have some very, very preliminary results of our focus group that was held yesterday in the evening. But there are some insights that I want to share with you. So please, next slide. So we had 4 participants. So actually we had 8 participants that were interested in taking part, but a very last minute, we know all how this can go. There were people who were hindered to come to the focus group. So we had our discussion with 4 people, but still it was very relevant, all information that was shared during the discussion. So there were 4 participants. And we had a slightly older group than we had in Vienna. So the mean age diagnosis was 19 years old, with a minimum of 4 years, and 1 participant who was 38 years old at diagnosis. And the age during the focus group the mean age was 35 years, and the youngest person attending was 26 years old, and the oldest was 43. And all of them had chemotherapy, 3 of them had surgery, and none of them had radiotherapy during their treatment. So this is what I want to share about our focus group. There were at least 4 gaps identified during the discussion in education and career support programs that the participants took place in. So the first one is lack of aiming for personal match between the young person and the support specialist. So there were people who really had the idea that the organization tried to find the best match for this person. So if there is a personal match and the bond between the one taking the program and the one providing the program is very good, then they had the feeling that this was really beneficial. And not all support programs that were discussed really try to achieve something like this. So this was experienced as one of the gaps. And then the second one is that the support specialist is not informing the employer on the issues experienced by the young person. So in some cases, the participant really had the idea that it was so helpful what the support specialist was helping the person with, but it was lacking of contact between the support specialist and the employer, him or herself, just to give some background information of why this is needed and why this is so important. So this is really a gap that was identified by all of our participants. And then the third one is that the medical specialist is not always helping the young person in finding its way to the support organization. We have several organizations in the Netherlands, at least. There are 5 or 6 organizations, and they all have a slightly different focus. And the person might want to choose him or herself what program and what organization fits best to the individual. So that means that, for example, a medical specialist can help guiding the person through the field of all options that there are, but it's not experienced by our participants that this really is the case at all times. So this can be improved. And then a final finding was that there is a lack of considering the impact of employment on various life domains during the consultation. So it was in some cases really focused on getting back to a desired amount of hours working and not looking at it in the broader sense on all the impact that not being able to work the desired amount of hours it has on various life domains. So it really needs to have a holistic view on the person that is attaining the program. So these are 4 insights that I wanted to share with you based on our focus group. And finally, I would like to tell you the next steps that Kirsten and I are about to take. So we want to analyze the results together. So we have to compare our transcripts with which are in German and in Dutch. So we first have to do a translation, and then we can identify themes that are were discussed in both of our focus groups. And we want to draft recommendations, including a trainer program. As Kirsten just mentioned, it's really important that the trainers themselves are trained as well. We want to draft recommendations for health policy and write a scientific paper, as many medical specialists and other people involved in care are still reached in the best via a scientific paper. So we want to really address all of this. And then, of course, we want to inform the national support programs that were mentioned during the focus group so that we can help them improve. Anything that will come out of the analysis as well, we will take into consideration that as well. So thank you very much for listening, and we are happy to take questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There were no questions, but I think it's nice to acknowledge that Eric from Sweden also left a comment a while ago on how much he appreciates attention to all of this because he struggled with education. And thank you so much for being so open and honest about this, Eric. It's really, really nice to see. And you are all in a safe space. So if anyone feels like sharing anything like that, you're really welcome to do so. We've seen some really good examples of support systems in Austria and in the Netherlands, which for some young people participating from some other countries across Europe might just be science fiction at this time. But it's very interesting that you noted that even like this, signposting, it's really something that's missing. And healthcare providers might not feel it's their job to do it, or it might not be the oncologist, but somebody else maybe in the care team who would need to do that. And then you mentioned something about these consultations and the information shared here being also connected with employers and healthcare institutions. And I think it takes us back to the poll in the beginning of the webinar where we've asked about the importance of that, and maybe not a lot of people were sure how important that was, but maybe after this talk they will think differently. Thank you so much for your time, Kirsten and Jike. Really appreciate it. Look forward to more results from the project. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce 3 of our next speakers. We will have from Austria, again, Julia Kirisits, from the Netherlands, Jeff den Hartog, and from Spain, Rafael Fandos. And I think it's important to mention that we will be speaking about real concrete examples of services available for young people going through cancer in the space of education support and career support. So the people talking to us will be Julia, who has a master's degree in medical informatics, and she is currently a data engineer in Vienna, but she is also a young person with lived experience. You were 4 years old when you were diagnosed with a brain tumor. You had several surgeries, and in return now, for having learned how to achieve the career that you currently hold. You have also been giving back to community, and you have been participating in the career support program, Youth and Your Future, for 6 years. So we will hear from Julia, and we will also hear from Jaap, who will be telling us about what's happening in the Netherlands. And he is, of course, many of us know him as from the Dutch Childhood Cancer Organization. We know that he also has lived experience as a sarcoma patient, and he's currently working in the Princess Maxima Center and also in the EU-CAYAS-NET project together with his colleague Yike, whom we've just heard. And from Spain, we will have Rafael, who is working as a healthcare provider, and he's right now doing his PhD in health sciences at the University of Oviedo in psychology school, and he also holds a degree in third-generation psychotherapy. So there's a lot of knowledge and education there, but you're also giving back and you're helping our community, and you are in fact the educational program director in the Asociación Gaban in Spain. So I would like to give it over to the three of you to tell us about some concrete interventions and how that can change paradigms. Thank you.
So
I will go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Julia.
Thank you, Katie, for the nice introduction. Yeah, so we already heard a lot about, also from Thomas, about this disadvantage. How was it called? The disadvantage program. So I took place, so I entered our program Youth and Future when I was already studying on the University of Economics. And so there, and what I really liked about the program was that it is a one-to-one coaching, and it is done by a professional consultancy companies. So the mentors are from Die Berater, so they already know. Yeah, they are already used to do such consultancy, and I really felt that they were acting very professional. And we always had periodical meetings. So, but what I also very liked is that we could vary this the frequency depending on the demand. So when I had a lot of exams, or I was struggling more with my health conditions, then we had more often meetings or phone calls. And if everything was well and I was fine and so on, then we reduced the frequency for the meetings. And yeah, so how the mentors or the coaches were supporting me was mainly due to either guiding through the systems regarding regarding university and regulations, and also when talking about talking with the university with the university staff and so on. And so, because for example at the University of Economics, so there was this disadvantage compensation. It was really easy to get it for me. So I had, so my university professors were very cooperative, and they understood my situation, and they really supported me without having to fight for it, so to say. But later on I studied medical informatics at the Medical University of Vienna, and it was a smaller. There were not so much students in these studies, and there it was a bit harder to get this compensation, like because the people there did not have so much the understanding for it, and they were also not used to it, to how to deal with that. And there it was also for me very important to have someone who acts as a supervisor or as a mediator, and also may take part at important appointments or meetings with the people there, for example. But I also had some consultancy talks with how to make this application, or should I applicate or should I not, and how will this company fit to me, and so on. And so for me it was really valuable. But what I think is a bit challenging, so I think that's a bit the drawback from the one-to-one mentoring. So it's very important that the fit between the coach and the counselee or the participant is very well. So and if it does not match that good, either on a professional or on a personal level, then it has a large impact on the benefits from the program. And this also leads me to the ideas for the improvements. So one point I have here is to improve maybe the monitoring of quality, so to react faster if there comes up a mismatch for what reason ever, and in order to not lose time on where the participant maybe could already benefit from a change of the mentor, maybe. So because situations are changing over years and so on, so this could happen from time to time. And what I also would like to suggest for the future is to go a bit more into technology, maybe, and also provide maybe consulting or appointments via video calls, like we have it now, so via Zoom or Teams or whatever. And sometimes it would be also nice to have some appointment confirmation, or like we got it for today, just a file with the entry for the calendar. So but these are more or less some nice to have. So in general, I was really happy and thankful to take part in the program. So it helped me a lot, especially during. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julia. And in the beginning, I introduced you as contributing to this program, and now I realize you were a mentee, not a mentor. But by all the things that you have shared now, you are actually contributing to the program. And the fact that you are able to speak about it in such clear ways and analyze it, I think it's a massive, precious information to the service providers themselves. So thank you so much for telling us about your personal experience participating in something like this. Thank you so much. We're going to move straight on to Jaap, and I believe you will be speaking about what you are providing. Is that correct?
More or less. First of all, thanks for having me. I don't have experience myself about difficulties finding a job or any support programs. In fact, it is due to my cancer history that I was able to start working for the Dutch Childhood Cancer Organization quite some time ago, and now for the Princess Maxima Center. So I will speak in general terms, and I'm not going to share personal experiences. Let me quickly sketch the Dutch context. We have around 500,000 young people with a physical condition who just want to work. And this includes many survivors of youth cancer. And we all know there is a big gap between these young people and the labor market. It's not normal for this group to just find a job. So in the Netherlands, we are privileged to have several organizations working as intermediaries with well-regarded companies to get those people to get these people to work. And so I will just quickly share some insights about one agency I know. This is Emma at Work. This is a company which started in a hospital in Amsterdam, the Emma Children's Hospital. And they offer a so-called gap track, which enables companies to hire young people between 18 and 39 via this agency. And the companies can become a member and pay a fee. And in return, they can hire people which can be linked to a buddy, a mentor. So that's an employee working at this company. And those two form like a little bond. And then the candidate even can get job coaching if needed. And sometimes this works out great. Yesterday evening, one of the participants of the focus group found a nice job via this construction. But there's always the challenge or the luck factor. Is there a match, as we also heard of Yika? And of course, will the contract be prolonged or changed into a permanent contract? So success is not always guaranteed. So this is just one example of an agency. I will now shift to the Princess Máxima Center itself. What do we do about this? 2 years ago, we had an informal discussion with members of the hospital, of staff members, volunteers of Fox, the survivors group in the Netherlands, and representatives of a reintegration agency, USG Restart. And the topic of the conversation was, what do survivors face when it comes to finding suitable employment? And it was revealed that it's mostly fatigue that is an obstacle. And it was said to the survivors, if he had found us earlier, he most likely could have helped you find a suitable job. And this was an eye-opener for us as the Maximum team. The question came to our minds, what are we doing ourselves? Are we working toward an inclusive and diverse workforce? The mission of the center is to cure all kids with cancer while maintaining the quality of life. And being able to work contributes to experiencing a good quality of life. So we thought this is something where we also should have a responsibility. And of course, there are some survivors working in the Maxima. I'm one of them myself. But this all happened organically, and there was no real vision behind this. And lately, we were approached by a survivor who has difficulties finding a job due to her late effects. She had a brain tumor, and she is able to work, but on her own pace and her necessary conditions. And we are now working. We have started the process to see where are her talents, what are her interests, and what is her ambition. And together with this agency, we are now looking at how and if we can get her to work for our hospital. And she is a journalist, so she writes well. So we hope we can place her in the communications department. And although this is not finalized yet, it looks promising. And if this becomes a success, we consider upscaling, and maybe not only for child with cancer survivors. Is this a best practice? Maybe. I just share this to show you that sometimes change comes from within. And therefore, I would like to end with a quote of Barack Obama. Next slide, please. Change will not come if we wait for some other person for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we see. And I hope that our network will be a change maker itself as well. So, and I hope this webinar also is making us change makers.
Thank you so much. Lots to think about. I'm very, very conscious of time. We are over time. So I'm going to move straight to Rafael and ask you to please try to keep your intervention brief. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Katie. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. Let me see if I have access here. Yes, do I have control? Yes, I do have control. This is wrong.
Well, yes, it's good.
Forget that second part. So I'm here to talk about cancer stigma, which I consider is one of the foundations for psychosocial barriers in cancer survivors. Okay, but to do this, first I think we should define what stigma is. So I like to look at Goffman's definition of what stigma is. And he says that it's an attribute that is deeply discrediting. To this, I also like to add that it allocates whom possesses it in a disadvantage compared to whom does not possess it. Okay. Once that is defined, we should also look at how this is represented. So stigma has many different phases, but right here talking about cancer, we first have to look at the fact in question, which, as it's already there, is cancer. After that, there you go, you have a thought. That thought comes in many different questions. For example, well, if this person has cancer, what if this happens? And then I start to answer by myself what I think will happen. Well, for sure, this other thing will happen. And that takes us to different acts, which in ultimate terms are discrimination. This has to do with the hindering factors that Kirsten was talking about in the Vienna focus group, which all of them are definitions of stigma, except for the lack of financial burden, which is something different. But all of those in hindering factors are what stigma is. So with that in mind, we can see that as in all social behaviors driven by collective thoughts, what usually happens is that you have one individual that plants a reasonable doubt or thought in another individual. And this process happens over and over again. And you have all of these individuals that start planting reasonable doubts. Society internalizes these thoughts by normalizing it, and then that thought becomes behavior, and behavior becomes discrimination. So once you have that, what can you do? What can we do about that? Well, with the different awareness talks that I've been doing all around Asturias and my own personal practice, I think that the best answer to this is doing a bit of reverse engineering and using what normally is a hindrance for us as something positive. And how can we do that? Well, I try to do that with what I call the STICCAP, which is the Stigma Cancer Project, which is something I'm trying to do right now with the University of Oviedo. So this project comes in different phases. The first phase that we're working around with right now is adapting cancer stigma scales to youth population. Right now, we could only find one real and actual cancer stigma scale in the whole world, and it's adapted to very little places. And it's only for adults. So that's something mind-boggling. So right now we're trying to get that adapted to Spanish population and culture. And then once we have that, adapt that to youth population. Once we have that, we'll be applying that to a national level, refining our actual awareness talks, our interventions, doing a retest to see how the results come out. And then once and again, start all over and trying to improve things. So that would be a bit of the description of the program, of our intervention. The benefits we think are, first of all, unifying the methodology and to gather all of that information, and also unifying the types of intervention. Secondly, I personally think this is quite important. This will give us the ability to intervene from the inside rather than from the outside. And with this, I mean that we'll be the ones planting that seed that I talked about before. We'll be planting that seed in schools and universities with different awareness talks. But that does come with different challenges. And some of those challenges are, for example, over here in Spain with our autonomous and regional system, we have many difficulties with access to underage youth population. I don't know how it is in other places, but over here, it's a mess. Also, awareness talks do need important logistics, transport to school, the time that we have to do them, etc. And of course, all of that, knowing that the more we can do, the better. So logistics is something very important. And then there's another challenge, which for me is also an improvement or an idea for improvement. And it's that right now, we're talking about doing this at a national level in Spain, but it would be beautiful. And I think that very useful to do this in an international level, taking this elsewhere, for example, in Europe, with all the facilities that we have right now, we could actually do this. But that also has some challenges, like translating it to other languages and also guaranteeing statistical invariance. So that's pretty much what the stick cap is all about and what we're trying to do. Just to finish briefly, I also want to finish just like that with a quote. This quote is from Bandura, and it says that people not only gain understanding through reflection, but they also evaluate and alter their own thinking. So with this in mind, what I like to push people to do is let's give people something to reflect upon. Let's give people something to think upon. And with that, let's try to make them change their evaluations, their thinking, and with all that, their behavior. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this overview of human behavior and how to change the stigma and how to reverse engineer discrimination. It's been really useful. But in the meantime, we have even more concrete things and more concrete solutions coming through the pipelines. And I'm not saying that you haven't given us lots of thought to think about for all the patient advocates sitting on this webinar. But let's invite Anna Zettel and Annika Ruprecht. They are both participating in the EU-CAYAS-NET project. Anna is a patient advocate and a researcher at the Medical University of Vienna. She is trained in evolutionary anthropology and now is also a psychology student. And I know she's supporting several of our work packages. So very much thank you for all your hard work in this project. And Annika is a psychologist with a focus on clinical psychology. And she's also working in the Medical University of Vienna. So we would love to know what very concrete and practical and usable things are in the pipelines of this project that we can take away on this topic of education and career support.
Yes, thank you very much, Katie. We're happy to be here today. So we've already gained a lot of important information and helpful tips in the previous speeches. So thank you very much for that to all the speakers. It can be said that some young survivors need support in their education and in their professional careers, and that survivors often do have lower chances of receiving adequate education to fit their needs, and they also often do have lower chances of establishing and developing themselves professionally. So we, the MedUni Vienna team, have therefore set ourselves the task of developing a toolkit dedicated to the topic of education and career support as one part of the project. With this toolkit, we want to provide quick and clear information, and we aim to collect information material in as many languages as possible and share them on our website. Anna will demonstrate this to you in a few minutes. Additionally, we wanted to design 2 pocket cards that lead to this specific toolkit via link. So they will soon go out to print, and you can see a little draft on a small picture on the slide. We then want to distribute these pocket cards to many people, for example, during events, during conferences, but also directly in the hospitals or in the schools. So the first card will focus on education and is addressed to student survivors and to their teachers and caregivers. And the second card is addressed to young survivors that are working, to their employers, to young survivors who are currently looking for a job, and also for their caregivers and healthcare professionals in general. So on the next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. On these pocket cards, we also highlight some key points that are needed in terms of support in education and career. So many of these key points have been discussed in the last presentations. Thank you very much. So maybe you will know some of them already, but we also want to briefly mention these key points now again. So the first is provide normality wherever possible and provide support wherever needed. Proper guidance can help exploring own talents and abilities. The second key point that we think is very important is that we have to share accurate, understandable, and honest information in an age-appropriate way. So as well, not only for young survivors, but also for older ones. And this is one thing we want to achieve with our toolkit. The third key point, integration and inclusion has to be strived for socially as well as legally. So the direct environment of survivors in education and in the professional field, but also legal regulation should focus on the best possible participation of each survivor. Anna will now explain the remaining key points to you and then show you the toolkit in a few seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annika. So it is also always important to consider individual factors of the survivors, like, for example, age, phase or disease, phase of the disease or the treatment, the time of absence from school or work, disease and or treatment related late effects, but also the social context and the family situation, but of course as well also the personality of the survivor. Consistent communication and collaboration between survivors and their social environment, the educational institution and the employer needs to be implemented as well. It is also important to provide psycho-emotional support by addressing feelings of anxiety or uncertainty and feelings of being different, as this can help with the sense of belonging. Small but individual adaptations in school or at the place of work can go a long way. This was already discussed by Thomas before, but basically as a summary, you can say this can be small things like individual breaks and recovery periods, giving clear instructions in work tasks, or also giving the option to arrange the working place to fit the needs of the survivors. So what are our solutions, or what do we want to achieve within the project? First of all, we want to develop a train-the-trainer concept. This is a framework for training potential instructors to enable them to train or help other people in this specific topic. As no or very little career counseling for young cancer survivors is taking place, the counselors have to be trained to be competent to conduct the career counseling for this specific target group in a professional and sensitive way. And with all the data and experience we have collected so far, we want to make recommendations for health policy to change the situation in the system as well. And lastly, the Medical University of Vienna has created a resource toolkit that we will have a look now at what it looks like. Yes, Asta will show you what it looks like. But basically, we collected support materials for education and career support from all over Europe for specific countries and also in their respective languages. Yes, you can find that at the bottom of the page on the project outcomes. And if you then when you scroll down a little bit, you will find the map of Europe, and you can there click on a specific country that you're interested in, and you will find some results there. And if you then pick one of the resources, you will get access to it. And these resources are either, for example, websites or brochures or services or programs where you can find help to your problems in your country and in your language as well. I just want to quickly mention that the toolkit is still under development, so we will be adding more and more resources over time. But if anyone has more resources that we have not added yet or knows about any programs in your country or language, please do not hesitate to send them to us so we can add them to our resource toolkit to make them available for as many people as possible.
So Anna, just very quickly, so these educational support toolkits, like for example, the one that we see from the St. Jude's Hospital, is it very specifically for Ukraine? Because I see Ukraine being clicked on, and I see the states-based St. Jude's Hospital's educational guidance. So
it is some resources are probably more broadly, but we also collected some that are specific for one country. So we really looked for example, support programs in Ukraine to also put them in these languages or for specific countries, since, for example, the legal situations can be different in every country. But maybe some scientific papers or brochures might be more widely applicable.
Okay, thank you so much. Really, really good tool. Thank you. It will be lovely to go there. And you will have some other materials ready as well. We've seen on your slides little pictures of it. What is the timeline? Because that we didn't see.
For when they will be available?
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
Okay.
So it will be pretty soon. We want to send them out to printing very soon. So, and then we will also make them available to download or
on the website on beatcancer.eu. Okay, brilliant. I think the time has come for our last poll of the day, and we would also like to say a massive thank you to all of our speakers and to Asta Tamolani, who is providing the technical support for us on this Zoom. And here is the QR code for your slider. The question is, what are your visions for career support for adolescents and young adults living with and beyond cancer in 10 years? So be as ambitious as you'd like to be. And if you all have gotten into Slido, maybe we can go to the next slide and then come back to this once the responses start coming in. And the website, in the next slide, you will see that in November, we will have another webinar on social challenges. In January, we will have a webinar on long-term follow-up. And we have a renewed request. If you could please go to our website, beatcancer.eu, and look at the survey on long-term survivorship care. So we would like to plug these 3 things. 1, the survey, if you could all participate in it, please. Mark in your calendars November 28th for the social challenges webinar, January 30th for the long-term follow-up care. And before we say goodbye, let's go back to Slido results to see our word cloud on what you would like to see in career support and educational support for young people living with and beyond cancer in 10 years. So a real reduction in hindering factors with less discrimination, that these services should be available for all. It will be easier to find jobs, that it will be available for all patients, that we will have tailor-made approaches, full integration, improved quality of life. Okay, while you keep them coming, we would just like to acknowledge every single speaker who has participated in our panel today. We thank Jaap, Kerstin, Asta for her support, Rafael, Yike, Ulrike Leis from the University of Vienna for putting together the panels and the speakers and the agenda for today. We'd like to thank Annika, Julia, and I hope I did not forget anyone, Thomas as well, who had to leave in the meanwhile. So much love to everyone. Thank you so much for your participation, and see you next month. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Katie. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. And I think we will stop our live stream now as well. And thank you for all the participants, from Andrea in Spain, Inga Peters, I would say, maybe think Germany, or from Northern Europe, Katarina Kepakova from the Czech Republic. Thank you so much. Martin Persson, I think you might be from the Netherlands, I'm not sure. Susanna from Switzerland. Carmen Monke from Costa Rica and the Netherlands. Thank you so much, everyone. Katarina suggests that she would like to seek guidance for addressing employers. Yes, we will have all of that ready for you. We have taken notes, and I think there's going to be lots of things coming out of this project. Ulrika is nodding her head. Thank you from Eric in Sweden, and thank you from Erika de Piazza. I think you might be from Italy. Thank you so much for everyone for your participation.